we're live.
The lighting should.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Truth Talks Live, a production of the Truth Movement New Brunswick. I'd like to welcome our regular panelists. We have Courtney and Larissa and Natasha with us this evening. Unfortunately, Sally is not able to be with us this evening. Sally's had a bit of a scheduling conflict the last few weeks, and we're trying to resolve it because she's obviously very important to the show. So tonight we are going to be talking about a few different things. It's just us, the regular panelists. So we tend to be a little more intimate and talk about things in our personal lives a little more than what we do when we have a guest. So I'm actually here in Montreal with my daughter, Courtney, who, we say at our very first show, we mentioned that we were related, but we try not to hit on that usually most of the time because she's fiercely unique, a fourth year PhD student, and she's pretty badass in her own right. So definitely don't want to take anything from her. So anyway, so I'm in Montreal for a short little visit with my daughter. So happy to be here and happy to be with all of you guys live. So what I'm going to bring into the conversation tonight is tricky. A few weeks ago or a week or so ago, I had something sent to me and something was brought to my attention, and I also observed it as well on Facebook. And we're not going to get into any nitty gritty details of some things, but suffice it to say, I have been left with a distinct impression that there are, which it's obvious anyways, for years, it'd be naive to not think so, that certain parties are involved, interfering, sponsoring, whatever way you want to look at that or use that word, it's entirely up to you. But in some ways, it seems like parties push some municipal candidates over others. So, and we know this has always been the case. It's just done more so behind closed doors. One of the things that had happened is that I had noticed a certain party seemed to be blatantly, more or less, backing some of their own prior candidates from another election. So I made a post about this and referenced it and spoke about it. And then the fun began of relentless, especially from one individual, a male individual from this party. Relentlessly over 5 days, 3, 4, 5 days. Went back and forth. Also, the executive director of this party, had a fair amount to say as well. And it was basically myself against these two gentlemen for a couple of days. And it's okay to disagree. It's okay to, argue, but over a 5-day period of one person relentlessly pursuing another person on their private, wall, domain, whatever you want to call it, like in their personal space. 1 day would have been plenty. 2 days would have been like, what? 3 days is like, okay, there's something wrong with this individual. And 4 and 5 days later of being harassed, there's just no other way to word it, of being relentlessly harassed by the same person who refused to accept my viewpoint. And it, got so bad to one point that the executive director mistakenly, used a name and has since apologized. That was not very conscious or well thought to use. And also, and it was a reference to it was like a reference to a mental health reality question, I guess. So Larissa, also our panelist here this evening, had also participated in some of the conversation. And so had many others, not many, but quite a few others who were quite obviously well known around here or known well enough. They were white, Caucasian, and mostly, or appeared to be, and also were clearly English. And Larissa's comment drew comments because of the structure of her English. in which case Larissa is an English as a second language student. So, there were plenty of comments deleted from this party's part, and also an apology issued from this party, which is great. But we'd like to get to the deeper root of things here this evening about, we're not going to touch municipal politics a whole lot other than to say, I removed our videos with Kate Rogers and with Corinne Saunders Hersey because we cannot tell what parties are backing whom. There seems to be a multiple of parties, which is great if some can collaborate, but is this something that New Brunswick wants? Do New Brunswickers want our parties, meddling in municipal elections knowingly, unknowingly, or behind closed doors? So what's the deal going to be? What's it mean for us? The other thing that we are going to talk about a little bit and delve into this evening is mental health, and how people can tactically use tools, use methods of harming someone whom they know to have previously had mental health challenges before, and then use that knowledge to weaponize and to further cause damage to someone who has had mental health issues in the past. So I'll start with that, I guess. Maybe we'll open it up next to Larissa. I don't know if you want to comment on anything that I've commented on or bring something else to the table. It's a, free sort of style here tonight. Oh, Natasha wants to go. Oddly, you usually waste the last. Please, Natasha, go ahead. Sorry, Larissa. Go ahead, Natasha.
No, I know Larissa is going to be touching on a broader topic. So
Yes.
I think that I'll sort of comment to what you said, and then we can go that way.
Absolutely.
More sort of like have a flow with the topic. So
Sure.
I would say that as regards to the municipal elections, I agree. There's no secret in New Brunswick that many candidates do have attachments. I don't know that's the right word. Attachments to one particular party as opposed to another. They can be informal relationships or former candidates, as you said, because it's a small province and there's only a certain number of people who are interested in politics. So you might have the same people running in one, two, or all three, which is, I mean, it's nice to see new faces as well. So there is that fatigue that might set in if you keep seeing the same people over and over again. That said, we don't want to discourage anybody who wants to serve their city or
That's
their
right.
province, right?
That's
So if somebody's motivated, you know what, I don't care how you do it, as long as you do a good job, and accountability and transparency are always welcomed. So
encouraged and expected.
yeah, that would be nice, but we have a long way to go with that, and hopefully we'll get there. But so it's an interesting point that you brought up, right? Like, do we want, because this was surprising to me as well, because I've been following politics since I got naturalized, and there's a certain expectation that municipal politics are supposed to be free of all that. They should be sort of above all that, because obviously this city has to work with everyone. And if they're picking and choosing favorites, which we know some do, that's not good for the city's best interest, because then they'll be picking that contractor or that person because of their common party rather than the best person for the job.
That's right.
And every time you do that, you let down the city, or the town that you are working for. So obviously this is not something that should happen, but if we're honest with ourselves, if they're not, even if they're not declaring it, I would say a good chunk of candidates do have, as you said, backing, which is also pretty clear. There are people who haven't declared who's backing them in various mayoral candidates throughout the province, but you have a pretty good idea who is. So it's a question. Do we want parties to come out and like the green? Okay, no, no, no. Not saying any names here. Like there's,
That was a
okay,
slip.
third parties. And do we want, say NDP, Green, Alliance? Do we want any of them to come out and say, these are our candidates and we want you to vote for them because they're our candidates? Do we want that to happen? Is that a direction that we want to go? And it's also no secret that we've been affiliated ourselves, two of us at least, with another party. And that's, and I'm thinking I wouldn't want that. And if I saw the party that I'm involved with doing that, I would say, shouldn't we try to stay out of this? Is this something we should be doing? Because that's just not setting a good precedent. But at the same time, it comes to the point that you mentioned, that is it better if it's out in the open, or is it better if it's not spoken, but we know that a good amount of parties involvement is going
Right.
on behind
There's
the scenes?
also the third option there of
Yeah, what do you
make
think?
sure we don't do it at all. Or it's because, there's also, it's being done and we know it.
Yeah,
But, I'm not going to say any names, but the two larger parties been around a lot longer. They know what they're doing a little bit more. So things are,
yeah,
definitely able, to be kept more quieter on the down low, whatever you want to say.
yeah,
Then there's the blatant, these were our candidates. Please support us and make this city this color, councilors. And then there's okay, so we see what we believe to be wrong being done. So do we jump in the fire with them and say, well, they're all doing it, we might as well do it? Or do we look at like, okay, well, this is a problem, we recognize that it's a or potential problem, it may be one,
yeah.
and then try to look at ways to improving it instead of joining them basically. So sorry, continue.
Ideally, there should be one rule for everybody, and it's as you said, it's very confusing right now because you have some parties who are definitely backing candidates, and those candidates are not saying it, and it would, and then you have this other party which says they have nothing to do with it. For the record, they said they had nothing to do with it, but they
That's
had
true, but
their
they haven't done anything to correct it,
yeah.
or
So
well, they tried over
previous
anyway, not a
candidates
very good way.
say exactly that we're affiliated with this party. So it's
Yeah,
really confusing, as you said, at this point. And if you have people who are not that familiar with the rules,
that's right.
right? You have people who are not that familiar with the rules. Like, I think when this discussion was going on, a lot of people did not know what the rules were. And these are people who are native New Brunswickers who have been here, as they would say, for generations. So
Yeah,
you would
it just
think
went.
they would know, but they didn't know.
Yeah,
Whether it was a rule, whether it wasn't, it's a matter of ethics, they were not aware. So at this point, it's also about educating people.
hmm
It's not about, I mean, because that is our goal, right? We want people to be aware of what the rules are, and what ethics, wise, you should be doing. And it would be nice if everyone was doing the same thing, but it's really cloudy right now, and it's hard
mm.
to know.
And that's the
Because
problem, the
because I
cloudiness,
might
the
like
ambiguity.
the ambiguity, and I like there are candidates that seem very good on the surface, but if I don't really like this party that they're affiliated with, then I would take a step back. So then you think, if should we have a requirement? I think that's the question. Should we have a requirement if there's a municipal candidate, whether it's for mayor or whether it's for city, should they be required to disclose that if they had a previous relationship, a formal relationship with a party? And is that something we should require from them? I think that's a good question to put out there, because that way everyone's informed, right? Because the average voter is not informed. And
Right.
being a voter myself, like when I started voting, I will admit to being influenced just by the personality of the candidate when they came door to door. It's that simple. It's the emotional sort of impact that somebody leaves on you. And usually it's, can I trust this person? Is this person authentic? Are they going to do what they say they're going to do? So it's a lot of very simple things. The average voter is not going to sit down and memorize platforms and then do pros and cons. That's not the average voter. But so it would be helpful if I think this, I don't know if this requirement is there. I don't believe it is there in the, what's it called, the Municipalities Act for
Mm.
I don't think it is there, but I think it might be a good idea if we were to start requiring that. So that's, that's what I would add to that point. And I'll get into the second point you touched on later, but we'll let Larissa go ahead, or
Okay.
Courtney, whoever
Thank you
wants.
very much, Natasha. I was going to say I had a placeholder for Courtney for a second, a new dog, but anyway, she left too. So Larissa, go ahead, throw us with whatever you were going to throw at us, or make a comment, whichever you prefer.
Thank you. I want to start by saying in 1974, there was a very influential paper published by Robert May. He was an ecologist and mathematician, and he showed very simple difference equation by changing a little, by changing R, can make a huge differences in a whole system. This equation, you can use it in physics, you can use it in biomass, you can use it in ecology, bioengineering, in many areas, also political science, because that shows a little change to the system can make a huge change for the future. And what is that change? To me, this change is people. People, they can make a very big change. And I think people, they know about it. That's why they always vote blue or red. Then we are going from blue or red. If they are not happy with blue, they vote red. If they are not happy with red, they vote blue. But I want they know there is other options and they can make it much better. I think majority government for any parties is not really good. I mean, I'm a true hard NDP voters, and I really like even to see NDP one day win a minority government, because I want all the government, they sit down and talk together. And I mean, right now during the pandemic, last year we went through to the lockdown. I mean, many people, they realize the corona is putting it is real and we should take care of it. But do you know what is the problem? In 2015, the government that time, before 2015, the government that time cut so many funds from science. And many scientists, they couldn't even talk about their researches. And I was talking to my prof, Ben Newling, and Ben, he said, the governments, they usually want to see something, the result in 4 years. And that's why they put the money in economics. But if we're gonna hit with something like a virus, it's gonna put everything down. I mean, the economically we are done right now. We are hurting in so many different ways, and that's the thing. I mean, sometimes we just think for the next 4 years. We don't think what is gonna happen in 20 years, and I am hoping we put more thoughts, but we are for the next government who's gonna do something good right now and what they are gonna do in 20 years. I'm sorry, I'm really tired. I wasn't even supposed to be on the show today, but then I said no, I'm gonna join. And I also want to say something else. Many governments are against UBI. Last year, our government, they get scared to the people who lost their jobs, and many people from some parties also, they were against care. And I understand that, because right now we are in so many debts, but the debts is not because the government gives some money to the people. The government also gives so much money to the big corporate. For example, Mr. Hicks, he gave so much money to Irving. If Irving is gonna give all of us $1,000 and gave us a paycheck for $1,000, he's gonna still be a billionaire. And I guess sometimes we forgot what is difference between millionaire and billionaire. If you are a millionaire and you make 1 million each year, it takes 1,000 years, you become billionaire. Then did I do a right math? Yeah. I mean, sometimes we are truly stand for the very rich people. The rich people, they take money from government, and then you're mad at someone to take $2,000 per month because they cannot afford livings, they cannot afford rent, they cannot afford grocery, they cannot afford heat. The system is not working. When we say we want to tax rich, I'm not saying I want to tax someone who works at Sobeys. I want to tax someone who's a server. I want to tax someone who makes in millions and billions and still gets help from government. This is a broken system I'm talking, and I hope to see it to change it. Thanks so much. And I'm sorry, I speak really bad today. I'm so
No,
tired. But
no, no, you don't have, you never speak badly, Laura. I love listening to you talk, and I know a lot of people do. You have a beautiful accent, and you do very well speaking English. So you try hard, and it's obvious. And I'm so glad you mentioned something like Irving, because people, so one of the arguments they'll use is about him and taxes, this corporation, and I know they have offshore tax havens where they're not paying their fair share of taxes in New Brunswick. And if he were paying his fair share of taxes in New Brunswick, the rest of us, the government would have that money. It would come back to New Brunswick instead of being held someplace else. And poor people or people that are struggling financially tend to spend the money they have, from day to day living. They don't hoard their money. They have no money to hoard. It's living paycheck to paycheck and suffering in the meantime, or going without a lot also in the meantime. So I'm glad you did bring that up as well. Thank you so much. Courtney, what did you have to add to the conversation here this evening?
Actually, this is kind of a perfect time to talk about this. There's a photo that I saw, and there are two men sitting across from each other at a table, and then there's a third man sitting beside them. And the man who is sitting by himself, he has a plate full of cookies. And then one of the men sitting across from each other has no cookies, and the other one has 3 cookies. And the man with the plate full of cookies points to the guy with 3 and says, "That guy wants to take one of your cookies." Meanwhile, he has a plate full of cookies, and that's exactly what's happening with rich people and corporations want to kind of hoard everything that they have, and then they're making people fight over pennies for them. You have the rest of the population who, makes probably less than $50,000 a year, and they're fighting over whether or not someone should get a child benefit of $400, or people should be getting COVID relief. These are pennies to a lot of these
Pennies,
people.
pigs giving New Brunswickers a 5-cent raise. 5-cent raise. 5 pennies. Holy.
So
Premier Higgs,
You
No,
can
we're
buy
not watching, but
million coffee in months.
yeah,
From
that's
him,
like
not
leaving
even a Starbucks.
at a tip someplace at a restaurant. Like, it's insulting. You would have been better off not offering 5 cents than offering, go big or stay home. But anyway,
yeah, so you have that happening, and then you have, poorer people, or maybe not even poor, but middle class to lower class people who are, fighting tooth and nail, like just fighting with each other over money that wouldn't even make, Irving blink. So I don't know. I just think that people need to look at the officials they're electing, regardless of the party that they're in, and they need to look at what these people are offering. What are they promising? What are they going to do for you? And I think that people need to stop being so hateful with each other and kind of just try to have an understanding that we're all trying to make our way through this life. Some of us were born into different circumstances. Some of us had, things happen to us that were out of our control. Some of us have struggled. Some of us, have different issues that maybe you don't understand. I certainly can't understand everybody's issues, but I think we need to have a lot more empathy for each other and kind of look at our elected officials and, you know, see who is trying to bring people together and not bring money to the pocket of these corporate stooges.
Amen to that.
Basically.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, so I definitely, see a lot of what you have to say there. Then there's the issue of getting back to Irving again and him wanting to hide this corporation, this multi-billion-dollar corporation wanting to hide information from the EUB, like because they went to bat for us, and then Irving deciding on the last. I think it was the last day or the day of, anyway, that they would withdraw their request. And then there's this whole thing about Holland and it was actually Premier Higgs who apparently had instructed this. So, and my goodness, the thing that frustrates me so much with politicians of the past is the pretending to be perfect, pretending to be, Irving Higgs has been trying to say all along, almost, crying in the newspaper a year or two ago, I'm not an Irving man. I don't know why they keep calling me an Irving man. Well, gee, I wonder, it's become more and more clear all the time. So yeah, we might as well start out with our second round here. And for the second round, I'm going to talk more about mental health. And we've just lost now another young person in the last week from the St. Mary's First Nation. Premier Higgs, speaking directly to you, you promised mental health help when you got elected in the September snap election. So where is it? Like, what's happening? Honestly, that's what I'd like to know. We need access to these resources. We keep saying the same things. It's like repeating the same thing, but it's not being heard. It's not being listened to. People are still finding easy ways of opting out instead of finding easy ways to get better. And people can get better. That's the thing. I am one of those people who have struggled and been down as far and as low as you could go in a depression and came back up high again on the other side. So, there is hope and there is help, but where is it? And where is the funding? Where are these clinics, these walking clinics, or these accesses to these mental health facilities that you described during your election promise back in September of last year? That's what I'd like to know. So I'll move on for me to Natasha. Did you want to go next again, or?
Sure. Yep. Sure. So to the second point that you brought up, which was the how people can weaponize mental health, and as you had said, people who they know have an existing mental health problem. I'm going to take it a little further than that. I don't think it's just people who they know have an existing mental health problem, but actually trying to create a mental health problem. And in the past, if employers wanted to fire someone, fire their employees, or if somebody wanted to discredit somebody that they had a conflict with, it was relatively easier for them to do that. It was easier to make false assertions or just fire people without an explanation. All of this was easier. So, as we know, laws were put into place, unions became stronger, all of these things happened, libel laws, everything. These things were put in, protections were put in to make it difficult, or you would hope deter people from doing these things. So although it became a lot more complicated and difficult, in situations where these employers or just regular people who are, say politicians who are competing against each other, it became a lot harder for them to do that in a place where they would be forced to defend their position. So that did deter, hopefully, some people. But for a lot of people who just want to remove somebody from a position or discredit someone or bully someone, somebody they're competing with or somebody they've had some sort of issue with,
Still very
it's
easy to do.
it's still very easy to do, but now you have to sort of work around it.
Mhm.
Similar to, I mean, I can give a parallel to how before in the past racism was blatant and obvious. People were using slurs, but they can't really do that anymore because if they do, there's going to be consequences. So they have to work around it. So similarly to how people have to become creatively racist, uh, they have to.
That's a
um,
new term. You're
I was thinking, how do you define
making
it,
coin
right?
that one.
So I should. So just like they had to become more creative in how to practice their racism. At the same time, people who want to, whose instinct is to weaponize somebody's existing mental health, or even people who they perceive as vulnerable or fragile, and who could easily be triggered by a situation where their mental status is referred to, or sort of just pushing known triggers and doing it in a very strategic and very clever way to essentially cause that person to either appear like they're having mental health situation, like they're spiraling into a depression, or they're just really upset, and or make it appear as if they are, or actually trigger an emotional crisis
Mhm.
someone. And both these acts are incredibly harmful. And it's
Mhm.
unfortunately, there's no name for that. You have terms like bullying, you have terms like, I mean, you would know some of the more common terms.
Yeah, I
But
would know.
I mean, I think we can all sort of, have a sort of
I'll just create one.
discussion on that one. But,
Must
even
be
though
so
people
frustrating when it doesn't work, though.
probably, but you think people would stop, but I think people who are innately have a goal, for them it's a relatively easy thing to do because you're not. They can always step back and say, "Well, I didn't do anything. This person just seems to be incapable of doing this job, or is just not mentally fit." Or they will then turn it around and put the light on your reaction and not what they did to trigger that.
That's right.
And the most common thing I think we see with women is depression.
Mm.
It's anxiety and depression, and then all of that focuses, why is this woman anxious, why is she depressed? um, she must be, and it's not said out loud, but there is a sort of unspoken thing that is that you are weak, you're not able to
Right.
roll with punches, you're not, and there is that. It's not said out loud, but
Mm.
it's there. And I think that because there's no word for this, there's no word for
There's
pushing someone.
synonyms like distorted,
Yeah.
like delusional, like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. That's
crazy, cray, cray. There's quite a few synonyms for, this type of gaslighting, I think it is.
gaslighting, and unfortunately there's
Preying,
no.
not on your knees, but predatory
There,
behavior.
it's exactly, but there's no particular category that you can put it into. So you can go and say, for example, if you were in a workplace situation, or in my case, I was in a voluntary situation. I What do? I go and say, well, this person is gaslighting. So it's
Yeah, I
not
know. Yeah,
tangible, right? It's not very, and most sometimes people won't even know what that is.
I know.
And so it's I think we, with everything, like with every dubious situation, like we brought up the municipal, parties involvements. We're bringing up, we've talked about racism. The more you talk about something, the more you bring it into the public conversation, the more it becomes difficult for people to do. And then again, you're always going to have people who are going to get even more creative and come up with something else, but you've just made that behavior difficult for them to do.
Mm.
So I think it's very important that you keep talking about people who weaponize people with an existing past, mental health status, or even people they know to be fragile or vulnerable, women in domestic situations, people who are new to a workplace slash country, whatever. These are all things that make you easy to push. And especially if you have known triggers, like something is going to like put you in a situation where you're bound to be anxious, and then just sit back and watch, which is really awful. But
It
it
is
happens.
really is
So
bad. Hmm.
it's cruel. It's cruel. It's absolutely cruel. And there should always be some sort of penalties for this kind of people who deliberately engage in cruel behavior. But there, you have to put a label on it, and then you have to make a very clear, law about it, and that takes time. What we can do is raise awareness through
That's
conversations.
right. Hmm.
So
I agree.
that's all I would
Thank
say
you.
to that.
Thank you for talking about it.
Exactly.
All right, Larissa, did you want to go next? Final comments?
Well, first of all, 2 days ago it was Sizdevedar. It's a Iranian tradition. The Asian Iranian, they really care for nature. One of the items in the Hafsin table is something like a grass, and at the end we make wishes. We tie the grass and we put it in a water because we believe it's gonna bring more agriculture on this year.
That's interesting.
Thank you. And then I want to say something about how media they choose who they support. If you right now look at the newspaper, you see so much about red and blue. You see so much about conservative and liberal. And I understand they are right now have seat in legislative, and maybe that's why media pay more attention. But NDP is gonna start to have a race soon, and I don't see even one news about it. I mean, our party is equally important to others' party. Our party federally is doing good. I see the numbers is raising, and I hope provincially in this province we're gonna also raise. Um, and that's a problem. Usually media, they look at what government they ask us. For example, if you look at the movies for Hollywood's movie, if you look at the old Western movies, you see always Native Aboriginal are a bad people and a white they are a good people. Bunch of Native Aboriginal they are so mean to white people, and at the end, white people they are gonna win. Marlon Brando, he actually won an Oscar, but he didn't go to get his Oscar. He sent a native Aboriginal girl. She dressed up like a native Aboriginal. She went there and she read the letter from Marlon Brando. And he said, because all these years, Hollywood said lie about native Aboriginal, I'm not going to accept it. And unfortunately, we still see so many lies about our native Aboriginal. Another things I want to highlight today is about what happened to us last week. I mean, the guy, he first attacked you, then he attacked me. Then the guy, he sent me a half-ass apology. He said, oh, I was attacking you because I was mad at Jen. Then he actually told me in his apology letter, my English wasn't bad and he wasn't attacking my English. He was attacking me because I was defending Jane. I wanted to send him a thank you note, but he blocked me. And then I couldn't send him a thank you note. But I'm happy we start to have a conversation because that's a problem. We don't talk to each other. We attack each other. We shouldn't attack. We should have a coffee together, sit down and talk.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm happy he apologized, but I'm not happy the way he approached it because I feel like, he find the weakness in me and he try to hurt me. And yes, he hurt me. And few years ago, actually, I was working at the restaurant, and one of my coworker, she wanted I do all the jobs for her because we all have something to do at the end of the night. For example, I have to do vacuum, someone to clean the fridge. And she was kind of making me do everything. Is it fair? Sometimes I was trying to do her job, but sometimes I was also tired. I was studying, I was working. I mean, I had to schoolwork to do. Then I wanted to help her, but at the same time, I couldn't do everything. Then instead of she, for example, explain to me, okay, for example, maybe we can find some middle ground and we work it together. One day I was polishing silverware and she came to me and she said, you have a bipolar and you're gonna kill yourself. And at the beginning, I was kind of sad. The second time, she said that I was pissed. The third time, I told her, you don't have a degree in psychology. You cannot tell me, if I have a bipolar or if I'm gonna kill myself. I mean, so many years passed, maybe more than 7 years. I'm still alive. Then, she
My goodness.
actually, what I told her makes her more mad because she said, yeah, I don't have a degree. But I want to be clear something here. Even I cannot tell to someone if they have a mental problem with my master degree, because my master degree is in mathematics, it's not in psychology. Then each person, they have their own field to study. Then, I mean, you cannot say, and even a psychology, if they don't sit down with you, talk to you, knows about you, they cannot say if you have it or if you don't have it. Anyway, a few years later, I was telling one of my friends, because I thought that person is racist, who told me. I was talking to my friend and she said actually she was so depressed and few times she wanted to kill herself. And she said if someone was telling me you're gonna kill yourself, it was a enough reason for me to finish my life. That is why I didn't even support Jen that day. I was supporting other people who are struggling with mental health, and that can affect them. We should be very careful what we are using. We shouldn't use, even, I mean, some people sometimes they say, for example, you're a dog or you're a pig. I don't think so. We should even be rude to animals. We should be, nice to all of us. We all equal. And if you are pissed at Jen because she was thinking, your party is supporting some members, you should have a seat, talk to her, and maybe you say, I make a mistake. Let's move on. You don't need to attack her or attack me. The both attacks, it was so mean. But I still thank you for your apology. And I wanted to send you a thank you note. And I didn't want it to be sarcastic. Right now I'm a little sarcastic, but that time I wasn't. But then I see you block me. I couldn't even send you a message. Then what, but anyway, I'm happy you start a conversation and I'm not mad. I just think we have a very bad system. The media doesn't support many good access, and we need to bring awareness. And each time when we see something wrong, we should talk about it. For example, one time I post something and I thought actually that's a good thing, but then people, they told me, oh, that is really wrong, and I couldn't really understand why that was wrong. I actually messaged Jen. It was 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I said, oh, why people they don't like it, and then we had to Google it to understand why people didn't like it. And then I deleted, I apologize, I deleted. And that's why we always can learn. And we live in a very expand world. We learn everything every minute. It's not a bad thing, it's learning process. We should be happy.
Mm.
Have
Thank you so much, Larissa. I agree too. It's none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. It's okay to say I was wrong and I am sorry. When a but is included after that apology, it is no longer an apology. I'll say that too. I am sorry, but. So just keep it. It's not an apology. When you include the but, there's no apology. When you are sorry, you are unreservedly sorry. I apologize. So, Courtney, what would you like to leave us with your final thoughts?
So I had two things that I wanted to bring up, so I'll make them both quick. Something Lara actually just said about how you posted something and then people were getting upset, and you went on Google, which almost everybody has. If you have access to internet, you have access to Google, and you can figure out what things are insensitive and what things are wrong to say. And we have a lot of people who kind of claim that they're not racist. They're like, I don't know any better, or this is how I was raised. But go on Google, do a little bit of reading, try to open your, expand your thoughts so that you aren't saying these things that are, horribly offensive. And then my other quick thing I wanted to touch on is while we're talking about, people who are running in elections, we talked about municipal elections, the NDP. I think that it's great that we have this sort of trend towards electing officials who are not career politicians, whose families are not part of a family career political party. We really, I think, need to move towards electing people who are real people with lived experience, who are going to be able to empathize with you, who have kind of lived through a lot of the issues that they're going to be fighting for you. So I just wanted to say that a candidate here beside me for the NDP is very much falling into that category. So
thank you so much, Courtney. I do agree, though. Like, there's
too many career politicians.
Yeah, there's a lot of career politicians, and when you have, this brother was a politician, this brother was a politician, this brother's a politician, this one's son's going to run as a politician. Like, come on, leave something for somebody else. Honestly, like, there are more people than this one entire family, and they shouldn't, nor should they be speaking for an entire community or a section of communities for 20 more years. Like, come on. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. So it was a great episode with you ladies tonight. Oh, sorry, Natasha, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that I think we need to have term limits.
Also, I
really
agree. Yes.
I was reading some of the bios for some of the people who've been running, and really 30 years is a really long time. Do you really need to be in this position?
That's a dinosaur in politics. And that means that your ideas mostly are going to be old fashioned. And that's why New Brunswick is stuck so behind the rest of Canada. Like, we've barely, I don't know if we've come out of the 1900s yet. Like, we're still in the late 1900s, early 2000s with so many things here. It'd be nice to move ahead.
I just want to finish up by saying, full disclosure, I wasn't a candidate for the NDP in the last provincial election. So if I inadvertently seem to be critical of one party, it's not because, I'm party supporter. It's not that. There are things I like about all the parties, including the parties and the alliance. Everybody has some good points, but when you're picking a home, there are some things that really stand out to you. And for me, it was the leader. He, first of all, he was a person of color. He was so incredibly eloquent. He was brilliant. I felt he was discounted because of that. That instinctively drew me to that. Plus, there were just some things that really stood out to me. So I don't hate any party. Like I said, there's good things about all of them, I think. And I have literally voted for all of them at some point. So I just wanted to add that. And again, I do wish that they would put in term limits, because it is insane that you have somebody in the same position for that long. Not only are your ideas going to be fixed and likely outdated, there might be some people who are just very, 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 very have a lot of energy and keep changing, but most people are going to think they already know the business. And in addition to that, you're going to have people who make a lot of connections when they're in that position, and will not necessarily be looking out for the best interests of the people, but their own personal connections. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Yes, I very much agree. In like 8-year term limits, definitely. Going beyond that, you're into new generations, and new generations of people have come up with different ways of thinking and doing things. So I absolutely am a believer in 2 term limits as well. So we are up on our time. Really, really enjoyed being here. I'm with Courtney here in Montreal. So love to talk to you ladies always. And I really like the shows when it's just us sometimes too, without a guest. We have a guest coming up in future episodes, so we'll get to those and let you know about them when they're coming up. Thank you so much to every one of you guys. Thank you to the viewers, and we will see you again next time. Truth Talks Out. Have a great night, everybody.